AM Weather is made possible by grants from the Federal Aviation Administration, the Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association, the AOPA Air Safety Foundation, Avemco, direct writers of aircraft and watercraft insurance, Phillips 66, providing products and services to pilots at 800 FBOs, and ESD Weather Systems.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to AM Weather. I'm Joan Von Arndt.
And a good Wednesday morning, everybody. I'm Carl Weiss. Well, springtime is here. Make no mistake about it. And one aspect of springtime weather is severe thunderstorms, and they've certainly popped over the south central states. Let's check things out, first of all, by looking at a close-up of the central part of the United States. This is an enhanced series of pictures, and we pick it up at 8 o'clock Tuesday morning Central Standard Time. We find an upper-level low-pressure system spinning slowly eastward across Texas, and this helped to trigger an outbreak of severe weather, especially through parts of Texas and into Arkansas. Tornadoes touched down near Star City, Arkansas, Breckenridge, Cisco, and Wichita Falls, Texas. Barns were damaged and some trailers overturned. Golf ball-size hail also pelted several spots in Texas. Damaging thunderstorm winds gusted to 58 miles per hour at Austin and 63 miles per hour at Texarkana. Drenching rains and flooding also plagued Texas and parts of Arkansas. Jacksonville, Texas had just about 8¼ inches of rain, and some roads in Arkansas were under as much as 2 feet of water. Heavy rain spread northward into eastern Kansas, where Westwood picked up 2 inches of rain. Record-breaking heat covered much of the south and east. 24 cities from Baton Rouge northeastward to Portland, Maine set or tied record high temperatures for the date. Right here in downtown Baltimore, they tied their record high temperature for the month of March when the mercury hit 90. Frontal system is touching off a few showers over the Great Lakes and northeastern part of the United States, and this area of gray over the lakes indicates a patch of low clouds. Next up, we'll focus our attention in the west, and this series of pictures starts at 3 o'clock Tuesday morning at Pacific Standard Time. Weather systems are moving right along across the western part of the United States, and the strong winds that are moving the weather also roared through the Reno area, where gusts were clocked at 74 miles per hour. Rain showers were scattered over the northwest and into the northern Rockies. A little more than 1/10 inch of rain fell at Boise, Idaho. This brought the total for March to 2.84 inches, making it the wettest March in 50 years. Tuesday's high temperatures mostly in the 50s across the northwestern Rockies, with 80s in the southwestern deserts. Next up, we'll put the evening radar pictures in motion across the United States, and we see a line of heavy thunderstorms moving from Texas into Louisiana, and more showers and a few isolated thunderstorms with the front moving through the northeast. Some of those thunderstorms over southeastern Texas have tops as high as 45,000 feet. There's a tornado watch posted for Louisiana, and flash flood watches cover much of Mississippi, Arkansas, and Texas. More showers and a few thunderstorms as we move into Pennsylvania and the Ohio Valley, with tops ranging from 20,000 to 28,000 feet. A few light rain showers over the northern plains. Tops there is up to 26,000 feet. We have snow falling in the northern Rockies and through the coastal range of Oregon. Highest tops over northern Idaho as high as 17,000 feet. Joan?
Well, Carl filled us in on the past weather. Let's turn our attention to the current weather and then to the forecast through early on Friday morning. We'll start out with this morning's current weather, and it is quite mild through much of the east and south. Temperatures early this morning in the 60s and 70s. 50s and 60s for California and the southwest, but cooler 20s and 30s through the Great Lakes across the north central United States. 20s and 30s also for the northern and central Rockies and into the interior northwest. 40s right along the Pacific coast. Now, we do have a mix of precipitation in the northwest, some snow in the mountains, rain and drizzle along the coast. Mix of precipitation also with the front across south central parts of Canada and into the north central part of the nation. Some freezing rain reported in Saskatchewan, snow a little bit farther to the north, and some snow and freezing rain also through parts of Minnesota and the upper Midwest. But in the warmer air, more spring-like weather, rain and showers from New England into the Tennessee Valley, some heavy thunderstorms from the Tennessee Valley southward into East Texas. With the heavy rains, we do expect some flooding through parts of Texas and the lower Mississippi Valley during the daytime. Dense fog is also formed across the Gulf Coast into Texas, also dense fog across the Dakotas and into the upper Mississippi Valley. Now, the temperature extremes at 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time range from 16 degrees at Marquette, Michigan to 76 degrees at Key West, Florida. Let's take a look at the high temperatures forecast for today, and we find mild 70s and 80s across the south and the southeast all the way into central New Jersey. 50s and 60s from New England across the mid-Mississippi Valley, the northern high plains, the Intermountain region, and out to the Pacific coast. 40s through the interior northwest and the northern Rockies, and 30s and 40s from the northern plains across the Great Lakes and into northern New England. Overnight lows will be below freezing through the Intermountain region, also across the northern plains, the upper Mississippi Valley, Great Lakes, and into New England. 30s and 40s for the northern and central Pacific coast. 30s and 40s also from the Four Corners area, across the mid-Mississippi Valley and Ohio Valley into New England and the mid-Atlantic region. 50s and 60s for much of the southeast, the south and the southwest, and 70s in extreme southern Florida. Let's take a look now at our first forecast map for Wednesday evening, and we find showers and thunderstorms will extend from the Midwest down to the lower Mississippi Valley, with rain and showers along the front out to the mid-Atlantic coast. Another weather system in the north-central part of the country will produce some rain from central Minnesota into central parts of Iowa, with snow in the colder air northward into northwest Ontario and Manitoba. Pretty much dry weather for the western half of the nation. By early tomorrow morning, we find showers and thunderstorms continuing from the Ohio Valley down to the central Gulf Coast, with rain out to the mid-Atlantic states, and snow from the upper Midwest northward into Canada. Mix of rain and showers developing across the central plains and extending into the Texas Panhandle. Another weather system will approach the northwest coast, bringing rain from British Columbia down into northern California. Finally, by early on Friday morning, we find that weather system moving farther inland, followed closely behind by another cold front. Good chance for rain and showers from British Columbia to northwest Oregon, with scattered rain and showers eastward into the Montana Rockies. Pretty much dry weather for the central part of the country, but wet weather will dominate the eastern third of the nation. Rain and showers for the mid-Atlantic states, showers and thunderstorms down to the Gulf Coast. Colder air, a band of freezing rain from northeastern Ohio across parts of Pennsylvania, New York into New England, and in still colder air, snow from northern New York State, northward across the Maritimes, and then back into northwest Ontario and Hudson Bay. Carl?
Heavy rainfall has certainly been one of the big weather stories so far this week, and we will continue with that theme by looking at the rainfall totals expected for the upcoming 24 hours and in a more general way for the next 5 days. Looking first of all at rainfall expected by this time on Thursday morning, with southerly winds bringing a lot of moisture from the Gulf of Mexico northward. We expect upwards of an inch of rain by this time on Thursday as far north and east as southern Pennsylvania and northern Maryland, and generally 2 to 3 inches from western Tennessee down to the central Gulf Coast. Next weather system moving in from the Pacific will bring a 1/4 to a 1/2 inch of rain into far western Washington. Now for the upcoming 5 days, which will take us right through this coming weekend, that same Gulf of Mexico moisture will lead to above normal amounts of rainfall generally through the eastern part of the United States, and the weather system in the northwest doing likewise for that part of the country. No rain or snow is in the forecast at all from California southward and eastward into the Rio Grande Valley. Joan?
It's time to move into the aviation segment of our program. We'll take a look at the flying weather for this morning and then the map for this evening. This morning, one report of delays at San Francisco due to some low clouds. Let's take a look at the details of this morning's flying weather, and we find low conditions from the mid-Mississippi Valley down to the Gulf Coast. Low conditions also from the Maritimes across the Great Lakes and into Manitoba, across Saskatchewan and into Alberta. Low conditions patchy through the central Rockies and into the Great Basin, and marginal VFR and some IFR weather along the Pacific coast. A look at the icing this morning. There's one area. It's moderate rime or mixed icing from the freezing level to 18,000 feet. This is found across the northeast. A look at the turbulence for this morning. Moderate below 8,000 feet for the northeast. Thunderstorms to 50,000 feet from the mid-Mississippi Valley into East Texas. Moderate below 18,000 feet from much of the west, and moderate to severe below 14,000 feet across the mountains of California. By this evening, we expect low conditions from the mid-Atlantic states through much of the Mississippi Valley and then back up into central Canada. Low conditions also through the northern Rockies and along the Pacific Northwest coast. A look at the turbulence for Wednesday evening. Moderate below 12,000 feet out in the west, moderate below 18,000 feet across the Rockies, thunderstorms to 50,000 feet from the Midwest down to the Gulf Coast, and moderate below 8,000 feet across the northeast and into the mid-Atlantic states. It's time for winds aloft, and Carl has them, starting at 2,000 feet above ground level.
We find a closed area of low pressure over the northern plains and southerly winds over the high plain states, 25 to 50 knots, northwesterly winds through the southwest and in the lower Colorado Valley, and also westerly winds along the eastern seaboard. All of these areas have winds of 25 knots or more. Moving up to 10,000 feet, we find a low-pressure trough over the central and southern plain states, and scattered across the United States, several areas of winds more than 25 knots. But from the Catskills eastward through the New England states, those westerly winds are running right around 50 knots. On up to 18,000 feet, a sharp low-pressure trough in the plain states, wind speeds of 50 to 100 knots through the northeast and also entering the far west. And finally, at 34,000 feet, with a jet stream moving in across northern California over the northern plateau, a small area of winds stronger than 100 knots, as they are with a second jet from the Great Lakes through the northeast. Coming up next is Weather Watch. For the full story, let's get back over to Joan.
We'll start Weather Watch early this Wednesday morning up in New York State, where a flood watch is in effect tonight and Thursday for the eastern Lake Ontario counties. Gale warnings are flying from Eastport, Maine to the Merrimack River in Massachusetts. Winds are south to southwest from 20 to 25 knots. Small craft advisories are flying from the Merrimack River to Cape Henlip in Delaware, including all bay sounds and harbors. Winds are southwest from 20 to 30 knots. Small craft advisories continue along the coast of North Carolina, including Albemarle and Pamlico Sounds. Winds are southwest from 20 to 25 knots. Along the Gulf Coast, small craft advisories are up from Apalachicola, Florida to Port O'Connor, Texas. Winds are southeast right around 20 knots. There is a moderate risk of severe thunderstorms both today and tonight through parts of Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and Florida. A slight risk area extends into Tennessee, Georgia, and Texas. A tornado watch is in effect until 8 a.m. Central Standard Time for much of Louisiana and extreme East Texas. Flash flood warnings are up in extreme northeast Texas and in extreme southwest Arkansas until 8 a.m. Central Standard Time. Flood and flash flood watches are in effect today through northwest Louisiana, much of southern Arkansas, northwest and northern Mississippi, and east Texas. Also in Texas, lake wind advisories are in effect for the Panhandle and the Northwest. Lake wind advisories are necessary also in southwest New Mexico. Up to Minnesota, freezing rain and snow advisories are up in the northern part of the state today, and dense fog advisories are up this morning in northern and north-central North Dakota, with a freezing rain advisory in the extreme northeast part of North Dakota. Out to the west, small craft advisories are up along the Washington and Oregon coast for heavy swell. Small craft advisories extend along the California coast to Point Conception, and these are for hazardous seas. Finally, small craft advisories are up for California's outer coastal waters from Point Conception to Santa Rosa Island. Swell is northwesterly at 10 feet. Well, that takes care of Weather Watch for today. And one final item before we close, we still have some station listing brochures available. Remember that in addition to listing all the public television stations that broadcast AM weather each weekday morning, there is a mini version of the poster. To get your own copy, send a stamped self-addressed envelope to AM Weather, Owings Mills, Maryland, 21117. That's all the time we have today. Have a good day and join us tomorrow.